The first thing I realized wasn't that I was alive, but that my mouth tasted like old pennies and industrial rubber. There was a rhythmic whoosh, click happening somewhere to my left, a mechanical lung doing the work my own body had apparently decided to quit doing. I tried to swallow, but there was a plastic garden hose shoved down my throat. Panic didn't hit me in a wave. It hit me like a physical punch to the gut. I tried to sit up, but my body felt like it was encased in concrete. My arms were heavy, distant, like they belonged to a mannequin across the room. Easy, easy, she's surfacing. Dr. Liu, she's surfacing. A face swam into view. Purple scrubs. Eyes that looked way too cheerful for someone standing over a woman with a tube in her windpipe. Mrs. Brennan, can you hear me? Blink once for yes. I blinked. It felt like dragging sandpaper over my eyeballs. Okay, Evelyn, you're in the ICU at Providence. You had a stroke. You've been in a medically induced coma for 36 hours to let the brain swelling go down. We're going to take the tube out now, okay? It's going to be unpleasant. I need you to cough on 3. Unpleasant was a sterile word for it. It felt like vomiting a snake. I gagged, my eyes watering, my chest heaving as the nurse pulled the plastic invader out. I gasped, the air in the room tasting cold and sharp, smelling of rubbing alcohol and floor wax. Breathe, the nurse, her badge said Kayla, said, rubbing my shoulder. Deep breaths. You're doing great. What? My voice was a broken garbage disposal. Water? Ice chips first. She spoon-fed me ice. I focused on the cold. It was the only thing that felt real. My right side, arm, leg, even the right side of my face, felt buzzing and numb, like when you sleep on a limb wrong, but 1,000 times worse. The dead leg sensation. Where? I rasped. Where is husband? Kayla hesitated. Just for a microsecond, her eyes flicked to the empty plastic chair in the corner of the room. That look, that pitying, professional, oh honey look. Your sister Reese is in the waiting room. She's been here the whole time. We told your husband to go get some rest yesterday. Phone, I whispered. Mrs. Brennan, you really should rest. Phone. I tried to make it a command, but it came out as a beg. I needed to see the time. I needed to anchor myself. Kayla sighed, reached into the drawer of the bedside table and handed me my iPhone. It felt like a brick in my left hand. My right hand just lay on the sheet, a useless meat prop. I used my left thumb to clumsily swipe up. Face ID didn't work. Half my face was drooping, so I had to punch in the code, 1984. The screen exploded with notifications, missed calls from clients, texts from my boss. But 2 notifications sat right at the top, glowing with malicious intent. Notification. First Republic Bank. Alert. Balance for act ending in 4492 is $0. Overdraft protection activated. Notification 2. Cameron. Sent. Yesterday, 4:12 p.m. Message, I deserve this after everything I've put up with. Don't bother calling. I stared at the screen. The numbers didn't make sense. 0.00. That account had $78,000 in it. That was the Freedom Fund. That was 15 years of showing warehouses in the rain, 15 years of eating protein bars in the car between meetings, 15 years of missed birthdays and late nights. I opened the banking app. My vision was blurry, swimming in and out of focus. I squinted. Transfer. 78,412 Zeors. Recipient Oral Visionaries LLC, Oral Visionaries. That was Cameron's Soundscape Consulting brand, the one that had never earned a single dime, the one I paid the LLC filing fees for because he said it made him feel legitimate. He hadn't just left. He had looted the vault while the guards were dead. I looked at his text again. I deserve this. The audacity wasn't just breathless, it was atmospheric. He was the victim? I was lying in a hospital bed with a numb hemisphere of a brain, and he was the victim because... What? I asked him to get a job? Because I didn't like his experimental noise art played at 2 a.m., my left thumb hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to scream. I wanted to type a novel of profanity that would make a sailor blush. I wanted to ask why. But then I looked at the timestamp. He sent it yesterday. He thought I was out cold, maybe dead. He thought he had a head start. If I screamed, he'd know he won. If I begged, he'd know he broke me. My thumb shook as I opened the emoji keyboard. I scrolled past the crying face, past the angry face, past the middle finger. I found it. The most passive-aggressive, dismissive, cool story bro symbol in the digital lexicon. Me. I hit send. Watched the little delivered tag appear. Then I dropped the phone on my chest and let the darkness take me back. But this time, the darkness wasn't sleep. It was planning. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. 72 hours earlier, I was standing in the middle of a 4 million penthouse in the Pearl District, holding a lukewarm latte that I hadn't taken a sip of in 40 minutes. The light is aggressive, the client said. His name was Jax, or Dax, something with an X that sounded like a medication for erectile dysfunction. He was 26, wore a hoodie that cost more than my first car, and had made his money in algorithmic crypto yield farming, whatever the hell that meant. It's south-facing, I said, my voice practiced, smooth. You get the mountain view without the gloom, and the glass is UV treated. It won't fade your art collection. I don't have art, Jax Dax said, wandering toward the floor-to-ceiling windows. I have NFTs. Can I display them on these windows? With the right projector set up, absolutely, I lied. Or maybe it was true. I didn't care. I just needed him to sign. The commission on this place was 6 figures. That was the renovation budget for the condo. That was a cushion against the fact that Cameron had spent $4,000 last month on vintage modular synthesizer cables. My right arm felt weird. Not pain exactly, just absent. Like when you sit on your hand until it falls asleep, but the sensation was creeping up past my elbow toward my shoulder. I shifted the heavy portfolio to my left hand. Pinch nerve, I told myself, carrying too many lockboxes. Need to see the chiropractor. What about the acoustics? Jax Dax asked. If I'm recording a podcast here, will the street noise bleed in? Triple-paned German engineering, I said, stepping forward to tap the glass. That's when the world tilted. It wasn't a dizziness, it was a shift in gravity. The floor seemed to rush up toward my face at a 45-degree angle. The coffee cup in my right hand. Wait, was I holding it? I couldn't feel it. Slipped. Smash. Starbucks blonde roast exploded across the polished concrete floor, splashing onto Jax Dax's limited edition Yeezys. Whoa, he said, jumping back. You okay? I tried to say, I'm so sorry, I'll clean that up. What came out of my mouth was, I'm so, cla. My tongue felt like a swollen sponge. It wouldn't hit the roof of my mouth. I tried to lift my right hand to cover my mouth to hide the drool I could feel escaping the corner of my lips. But the arm just hung there. Dead weight. A sack of meat attached to my shoulder. Panic. Pure liquid panic. Lady? Jax Dax stepped closer, his face morphing from annoyance to horror. Hey, you're drooping. Your face is drooping. No, I thought. Not now. Not in front of the client. I have to close this. I tried to take a step back to lean against the island for support. My right leg buckled, just collapsed. No warning, no pain, just gone. I hit the concrete hard. My hip bone cracked against the floor, or maybe it was the sound of my dignity shattering. I was lying in a puddle of lukewarm coffee, looking up at the high industrial ceiling I had just spent 20 minutes praising. Jax Dax was hovering over me, phone out. Siri, call 911, the realtor is glitching out. Glitching out. That was the last thing I heard. I stared at the dust motes dancing in that aggressive south-facing light, and I remember thinking, Cameron is going to be so annoyed that I didn't pick up his dry cleaning. You can't leave, Dr. Liu said, blocking the doorway of the hospital room. He looked like a tired owl. Mrs. Brennan, you suffered a significant ischemic event. We need to monitor you for another 48 hours minimum. I'm leaving, I said. My speech was better today. Less slushy, more distinct, though I still sounded like I'd had 2 martinis on an empty stomach. I have support at home. Your husband isn't answering his phone, the nurse, Kayla, chimed in from the vitals monitor. We've tried 3 times. He's parking, I lied. Reception signal is bad in the garage. My sister Reese stood next to the bed, radiating an aura of corporate warfare. She was wearing a gray power suit that cost more than the hospital bed I was lying in. She checked her Cartier tank watch. Dr. Liu, Reese said, her voice like liquid nitrogen. My sister is a voluntary admission. Unless you are planning to section her under a mental health hold, you cannot physically restrain her from leaving. She is signing the AMA, Against Medical Advice forms. Now please get the wheelchair. Dr. Liu looked at Reese, then at me, then sighed the sigh of a man who didn't get paid enough to argue with lawyers. Fine. But if you feel dizziness, numbness, or headache, you come back immediately. Understood, I said. The humiliation of getting dressed was a special circle of hell. Reese had to help me. I sat on the edge of the bed, my right arm hanging limp, while my millionaire sister, who negotiates hostile takeovers for fun, gently threaded my arm into the sleeve of my sweatpants. He took the money, Reese, I whispered, watching the door. All of it. I know, she said softly, crouching down to tie my sneakers. We're going to get it back, but first we get you out of here before he figures out you're awake. He thinks I'm brain dead. Let him think it. She tightened the laces. Ready? Give me the cane. They handed me the hospital-issue aluminum cane. I gripped it with my left hand. Standing up took 3 tries. My equilibrium was shot. The world felt like it was on a slight delay, the video not matching the audio. We wheeled down to the lobby. Every time the elevator doors opened, I flinched, expecting to see Cameron standing there with fake flowers and a fake smile. But the lobby was just a sea of strangers. Wait here, Reese said, parking me near the automatic doors. I'll bring the car around. Look for the Volvo. Reese had money, serious money. But she drove a 2015 Volvo station wagon because she believed flashy cars attract liability. I sat there clutching a plastic bag with my patient belongings, watching the rain hit the pavement. A man in a fedora walked by. My heart hammered against my ribs. It wasn't him, just another Portland hipster. 10 minutes later, the silver Volvo pulled up. Reese jumped out, ignoring the honking taxi behind her, and practically lifted me into the passenger seat. As we pulled away from the curb, my phone buzzed. Cameron, where are you? Hospital called. Said you checked out? Reese glanced at the screen. Don't answer. I wasn't going to. I watched the hospital fade in the rearview mirror. Take me to your bunker. Reese's condo in the Northwest District wasn't a home. It was a fortress. 2nd floor, security code entry, concierge, and walls thick enough to silence a gunshot. It was minimalist, beige, and expensive. She settled me onto the leather sofa and disappeared into the kitchen. I looked around. No clutter. No half-finished sound sculptures made of wire and trash. No piles of dirty laundry. It was peaceful. It was terrifying. You need protein, Reese said, coming back with 2 plates, steak frites, takeout from the bistro downstairs, and a bottle of Pinot Noir that looked older than me. I can't cut it, I said, staring at the steak. My right hand was resting on my thigh, twitching slightly. Right. Reese sat down next to me, took my plate, and methodically cut the meat into bite-sized squares. She didn't make a big deal of it. She didn't look at me with pity. She just solved the problem. Eat, then we drink, then we destroy him. I managed to fork a piece of steak into my mouth with my left hand. It was delicious. I chewed, swallowed, and felt the first tear track down my face. I loved him, Reese, I said, my voice cracking. God, I'm so stupid. I actually loved the bastard. Reese poured the wine. Generous pours. You weren't stupid, Evelyn. You were busy. There's a difference. Sociopaths are very good at hiding in the blind spots of busy women. $78,000, I whispered, and the savings account, and the checking. I pulled a preliminary credit check while you were sleeping, Reese said, taking a sip of wine. Her eyes were hard, fixed on the TV that wasn't turned on. It's worse than you think. My stomach dropped. How? He didn't just drain the accounts yesterday. He's been opening credit cards in your name for 6 months. The total debt isn't zero, Ev. It's -40. I stared at her. He stole my identity? He lives in your house, Reese said. He knows your social. He knows your mother's maiden name. He knows the name of your first pet. He didn't need to hack you. He just needed you to go to work. She reached into her briefcase and pulled out a manila folder. Tonight, we cry and drink expensive wine. Tomorrow morning, we open the box. What box? I had my paralegal dump everything on Cameron Brennan she could find in the public record. It's in the office. Reese clinked her glass against mine. Welcome to the war, sister. Morning light in Reese's apartment was unforgiving. It highlighted the dust motes and the dark circles under my eyes in the bathroom mirror. I brushed my teeth left-handed, a messy affair that left toothpaste on my nose, and limped into the living room. Reese was already up, dressed in yoga pants and a hoodie, sitting cross-legged on the floor surrounded by stacks of paper. A banker's box labeled Project. Scorched earth sat empty beside her. Coffee, she said, pointing to a mug on the coaster. And Advil. You look like hell. Feel like it. My leg feels like it's made of wood. I sat down on the sofa, swinging my stiff leg up. What are we looking at? The anatomy of a leech, Reese said. She held up a bank statement. So I traced the transfer from your savings. It went to Oral Visionaries, LLC. I pulled the articles of incorporation for that LLC. Let me guess, I said, blowing on the coffee. It's registered to our apartment. Nope. It's registered to a P.O. box in a strip mall in Beaverton. And the registered agent isn't Cameron. It's a Dwight P. Miller, Esca. Dwight? I frowned. Cameron has a lawyer named Dwight? He uses LegalZoom for everything. Dwight appears to be a real estate attorney who got disbarred in 2018 and reinstated in 2020. Bottom of the barrel. Reese handed me a highlighter. But look at this. These aren't just lump sum thefts. Look at the monthly withdrawals from your joint checking. I peered at the paper. Jan 12, $4,200. Consulting fee. Feb 14, $4,150. Retainer. Mars. $3,900. Equipment lease. He was paying himself, I said, the realization settling like a stone in my gut. He told me that money was for the studio rent. He said the landlord raised the rent. He doesn't have a studio, Evelyn, Reese said gently. I drove by the address he gave you last year. It's a vape shop. He's been taking $4,000 a month, funneling it into this LLC, and here's the kicker, paying taxes on it. He's paying taxes on stolen money? To make the income look legitimate, Reese said. So when he eventually left you, he could show a judge proof of income for his business. He was building a paper trail to prove he wasn't a dependent. He was planning to divorce you and argue that his business was thriving, so he wouldn't need to pay you alimony, but he'd keep the assets. He's not that smart, I said. Cameron thinks NFTs are digital souls. He's not smart, Reese agreed, but someone he's talking to is. This is structured. This is the under $10,000 rule. See? None of the transfers trigger a federal CTR report. Someone gave him a playbook. I looked at the column of numbers. $3,900. It was my sweat equity. It was the weekends I missed. It was the vacation we didn't take because money was tight. Okay, I said, my voice hardening. So we know where the money went. How do we get it back? We don't just want it back, Reese said, picking up a document printed on blue paper. We want leverage, and I think I found the smoking gun. But we have a problem. Reese smoothed the blue paper out on the coffee table. It was a power of attorney document. "Recognize this?" she asked. I squinted. "That's the medical POA I signed before my fibroid surgery 3 years ago, in case something happened under anesthesia." "Look closer," Reese pointed to paragraph 4. I read it. "Granting full authority over all financial assets, real estate holdings, and investment vehicles." "I didn't sign that," I said. "The medical POA was strictly for healthcare decisions. No money." "I know," Reese said, "because look at the signature." She held up a magnifying glass, actual old-school detective style. I looked. The signature, Evelyn Brennan, was shaky. The lines were too uniform, no pressure variation. "It's a tracing," I said. "He traced my signature from the mortgage docs." "Exactly, it's a forgery. A clumsy one, but good enough to fool a bank teller who doesn't care. He used this to access your separate investment accounts yesterday. That's how he drained the First Republic account without your PIN." "Okay, so we show this to the police. Arrest him for fraud." Reese shook her head. "This is a digital scan. The bank emailed me the PDF they have on file. To prove it's a forgery in court and to get the felony charges to stick, we need the original." "The wet ink," I remembered from my real estate exams. "Yes, we need the physical piece of paper with the pen indentation. Without it, Dwight the strip mall lawyer will argue you signed it and you're just confused from the stroke. He'll say, 'Her memory is compromised, Your Honor.' He keeps his important papers in a fireproof safe in the closet," I said. "Code is 0Zini00, because he's an idiot." "We need that document," Reese said. "But we can't just walk in. He thinks you're in the hospital. If we go there, we tip our hand." "I can't go there anyway," I gestured to my leg. "I can barely walk to the bathroom." "I can go," Reese said. "But legally, I can't break into your safe. It's marital property, but I'm a third party. If I take it, it's theft. It's inadmissible." The lost advantage hung in the air. We knew he committed a crime, but the proof was locked in a metal box I couldn't get to. "What if," I started, a plan forming in my foggy brain. "What if we don't need to break in? What if we make him bring it to us? How?" My phone buzzed again. It was Cameron. "Cameron, I'm coming to the hospital. We need to talk about your attitude." "He's bluffing," I said. "He knows I'm not there. He's trying to flush me out." "He's spiraling," Reese observed. "Look at the texts." We spent the next hour just watching my phone screen, like it was a bomb that might detonate. Reese cast the phone screen to her TV so we wouldn't have to huddle. The messages appeared in 65-inch high definition. 10:14 a.m. Cameron. "I called the nurse station again. They said you were discharged AMA. That is incredibly irresponsible, Evelyn. You could die." 10:16 a.m. Cameron. "Where are you? I'm worried sick." "Worried sick?" I snorted. "He's worried I'm talking to a lawyer." 10:30 a.m. Cameron. "This is typical. You shut me out. You disappear. You control everything. This is why I took the money. To protect us. To protect myself from your financial abuse." "Financial abuse?" I yelled at the TV. "I pay his cell phone bill." "Classic Darvo," Reese said, eating a grape. "Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. Text him back? No, wait, don't." 10:45 a.m. Cameron. "If you don't reply in 10 minutes, I'm filing a missing person report. The police will find you." "He won't," Reese said. "Last thing he wants is cops looking into his finances." 10:55 a.m. Cameron. "Fine. Be that way. I'm going to the studio to work. I can't create in this toxic energy." "He's leaving the apartment," I said. "Reese?" "He's leaving?" "Going to the studio," Reese made air quotes, "which means he's going to see her." "Her?" "There's always a her, Ev. Men like Cameron don't burn bridges unless they have a vine to swing to." My phone dinged. Not a text. A WhatsApp message. From Sophie, my former assistant at the agency. Sophie. "Hey boss, I know you're in recovery, but are you okay? I just saw something weird. I grabbed the phone with my left hand. Me? What did you see? Sophie. Sending photo. Don't freak out. The image loaded slowly on the terrible hospital Wi-Fi. Wait, I was on Reese's gigabit fiber. It loaded instantly. It was a candid shot taken through the leaves of a fake ficus plant. The location was the Daily Grind, a pretentious coffee shop on 23rd Ave where they serve deconstructed lattes. There was Cameron. He was wearing his serious artist outfit, a black turtleneck and that ridiculous beret I told him to burn. He was leaning across a small zinc table. Opposite him was a girl. She looked about 24, brunette, bangs. She was wearing a vintage oversized sweater that probably cost $300 at a thrift store. Her hand was on his knee, not in a friendly way, in a possessive way. And on the table between them, not a sketchbook, not a canvas, travel brochures. Zoom in, Reese commanded. I pinched the screen. Isla Holbox, Mexico, luxury retreats. He's not just leaving you, Reese said, her voice dropping to a terrifyingly low register. He's running with the money. Who is she? I asked. I felt sick, not heartbroken sick, nauseous sick. I don't know, Reese said. But Sophie is still there? Tell her to get a name, or a credit card number, anything. I typed. Can you hear them? Sophie, move tables. Hang on. 3 minutes of agonizing silence. Sophie, she just called him babe. And wait, the barista just called out her order. Victoria, oat milk matcha. Victoria, I said the name. It tasted like ash. Cameron hates matcha. He says it tastes like grass clippings. Victoria, Reese typed into her laptop. Victoria, Portland, art, gallery. She spun the laptop around. Victoria Vance, junior curator at the Gilded Lily Gallery, the one that rejected Cameron's portfolio last year. He's sleeping with the gatekeeper, I said, and paying for her matcha with your retirement fund, Reese added. Okay, we have a name, we have a location, we have the money trail. Now we need the shark. The shark? My divorce attorney. Miles. Miles didn't have an office in a glass tower. He worked out of a converted brownstone in Goose Hollow that smelled of old leather, pipe tobacco, and fear. Reese drove us there. I hobbled up the steps with my cane, sweating from the exertion. Miles was a small man, bald, bespectacled, wearing a suit that was impeccably tailored but slightly out of style. He looked like a librarian who murdered people in his spare time. Evelyn, he said, not offering a hand. He saw my cane. Reese tells me you've been robbed. My husband, I started. Ex-husband, Miles corrected. Mentally, you must make him your ex immediately. It helps with the ruthlessness. We sat. Reese laid out the evidence, the bank screenshots, the forged POA scan, the text messages, the photo of Victoria. Miles tented his fingers. Okay, here's the situation. If we file for divorce today, the judge will freeze the assets, but the assets are already gone. If he moves that money offshore or into crypto, it disappears. Divorce court is slow, fraud is fast. So what do we do? I asked. We don't file for divorce yet, Miles said. He smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was a smile full of teeth. We file for a temporary restraining order based on financial abuse? No, too weak. We need to catch him in a felony. We have the forgery, Reese said. But we need the original. And we need to know where the money is resting right now, Miles said. He moved it to the LLC. He's paying taxes on it. That means he thinks he's clever. He's washing it. He won't move it to Mexico until he's ready to fly. Sophie said they were looking at brochures, I said. Brochures are dreaming, Miles said. Tickets are leaving. We need to watch his spending. Reese, can you get a read on his credit card transactions? Real time? I know a guy at Amex, Reese said. I can mirror his feed. Good. Here's the strategy. Miles leaned forward. Let him think he's winning. Let him think you are broken, confused, maybe even dying. Silence is your weapon. Do not text him back. Do not go home. Make him wonder. Make him panic. Panic makes people sloppy." "And the safe?" I asked. "The original forgery?" "You need that document," Miles said. "Without it, it's he said, she said. If you can get into the apartment safely, get it. But do not engage him." "He's at the studio," I said, checking the time. "Or with Victoria. He usually works until 6 p.m. Reese looked at her watch. "It's 2 p.m. We have a window." "I can't climb the stairs," I said, frustrated by my own body. "I'll help you," Reese said. "We go in, we grab the contents of the safe, we leave. 20 minutes tops." Miles nodded. "Go, but if you see him, you run, or you hit him with the cane. I can defend assault. I can't defend stupidity." The apartment building, my apartment building, looked exactly the same, which felt wrong. It should have been on fire or covered in slime. Reese parked the Volvo in the alley. "You have the spare key?" "Left pocket," I said. We took the freight elevator to avoid the concierge. My heart was thumping so hard I thought it might restart my stroke. The hallway smelled of eucalyptus and someone cooking garlic. We reached door 404. I fumbled for the key with my left hand, dropped it. Clatter. "Shh," Reese hissed. She picked it up and slid it into the lock. Click. The door swung open. The smell hit me first. It wasn't the smell of home anymore. It smelled of stale beer and perfume. Her perfume. Floral and cheap. "Clear," Reese whispered, stepping in. I followed, dragging my right leg. The living room was a mess. Pizza boxes, clothes thrown over the Eames chair I had saved 6 months to buy. "Bedroom," I whispered. We moved down the hall. The bedroom door was open. The bed was unmade. I refused to look at the sheets. I went straight to the closet. The safe was bolted to the floor in the back, behind my winter coats. "Code?" Reese asked. 0000. Reese punched it in. Beep, 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 beep. The little green light flashed. She turned the handle. The heavy door swung open. I leaned forward, using the cane to balance, ready to grab the stack of documents. The deed, the passports, the original power of attorney. I looked inside. Empty. Not just empty of papers. Dust bunny empty. "It's gone," I gasped. "He moved it." "Check the back," Reese said, reaching in. Her hand swept the metal interior. "Nothing." "He knew," I said, panic rising in my throat. "He knew I'd come for it." "Or he's just paranoid," Reese said. She stood up, scanning the closet. "Where else would he put it?" "He doesn't have anywhere else. He's disorganized. He loses his keys if they aren't on the hook." "Wait." Reese froze. She pointed to the underside of his desk, visible through the open closet door. There, taped to the bottom of the glass desktop, was a bulky envelope, and next to it, a USB drive. "That's not his style," I said. "Taping things? He watched a spy movie." Reese rushed over. She peeled the tape off. The envelope fell into her hand. She ripped it open. "Is it the POA?" I asked, hobbling over. Reese pulled out the paper. She looked at it, and her face fell. "No," she said. "It's sheet music?" I looked. It wasn't sheet music. It was a sonic diagram for his masterpiece. Scribbles. Nonsense. "Why would he hide this?" Reese asked. "Because he thinks it's worth millions," I said, feeling a hysterical laugh bubbling up. "He hid his art instead of the evidence." "Check the USB," Reese said, pocketing the drive. "Maybe the scans are on there, or the crypto keys." Suddenly, the front door beeped. Beep, 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 beep. Someone was punching in the code. "He's here," I whispered. "Closet," Reese hissed. She grabbed my arm and shoved me back into the walk-in closet behind the rack of my blazers. She squeezed in beside me and pulled the door almost shut, leaving a sliver of darkness. "Honey?" Cameron's voice. It sounded cheerful. Too cheerful. "Victoria, did you beat me here?" Footsteps. Heavy. Coming down the hall. My breath caught in my throat. I clutched the cane so hard my knuckles turned white. He walked into the bedroom. I could see him through the crack. He was wearing the beret. He tossed his keys on the bed. "Victoria," he called out again. He pulled his phone out. "Hey, babe. Yeah, I'm home. No, she's not here. The nurse said she left, but she probably went to her sister's. She can't walk. She's not a threat." He laughed. A cruel, dismissive sound. "Yeah, I grabbed the drive. It's safe. Don't worry. We're good for Saturday. I'll book the tickets tonight." He turned and walked toward the closet. He was coming right for us. He needed a coat. Or the safe. I stopped breathing. Reese's hand clamped over my wrist. He reached for the door handle. My heart was hammering against my ribs so hard I was convinced Cameron could hear it through the door. Thump, 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 like a trapped bird. His hand touched the doorknob. I saw the silver lever start to turn downwards. Buzz. His phone vibrated on the bed where he'd tossed it. He froze. The handle stopped halfway down. "Ugh, hold on," he muttered to himself. He let go of the handle. Thank God, thank every deity in the pantheon, and walked back to the bed. "Hey, babe," he answered, his voice shifting instantly into that sickeningly sweet register he used to use on me when he wanted to buy a new synthesizer. "Yeah, I'm grabbing the stuff now. No, the safe is empty. I moved the files to the storage unit yesterday. I'm not stupid, Vic." Storage unit. Reese and I exchanged a look in the dark. He had a storage unit? Since when? "Yeah, I've got the backup drive," he continued, pacing the room. I could see his shadow moving under the door crack. I need to use the bathroom. Then I'm heading to you. Order me the spicy tuna. Love you." He hung up. Then, the sound of the ensuite bathroom door opening, then closing, then the fan turning on. "Now," Reese whispered. She pushed the closet door open. We didn't walk. We glided. I ghosted across the carpet, ignoring the screaming protest of my right leg. Reese grabbed the USB drive from under the desk where he'd left it taped. He hadn't grabbed it yet? "No," he said on the phone. "I've got the backup drive. Wait." Reese looked at the desk. The envelope was there. The USB we found was there. But there was a second tape mark next to it. Empty. "He took the wrong one?" I mouthed. "Or this is the decoy," Reese breathed. "Grab it anyway." She snatched the drive. I grabbed the envelope. We bolted for the hallway. The bathroom fan was loud, a rattling industrial noise that masked the sound of the front door opening. We were in the hallway. The door clicked shut behind us. "Elevator is too slow," Reese whispered. "Stairs. I can't. You have to." Reese hooked her arm under my left shoulder. I used the cane with my left hand, leaning heavily on her. We went down one flight of stairs, my bad leg dragging like a dead weight, sweat popping on my forehead. We exited on the third floor and took the elevator from there, just in case he checked the hallway. 10 minutes later, we were in the Volvo, 3 blocks away, hyperventilating. "He said storage unit," I gasped, wiping sweat from my eyes. "He moved the papers." "We'll find it," Reese said, jamming the key into the ignition. "But first, let's see what's on this drive. If we're lucky, it's the digital ledger." We drove to a strip mall in Beaverton, to a place called the PC Doctor. Reese knew the owner, a guy named Ken who looked like he hadn't seen the sun since 1999. "Encrypted?" Ken asked, taking the drive. He popped it into a tower that hummed like a jet engine. "Probably not," I said. "Cameron uses his birth year for everything." Ken typed for a few seconds. "No password. Folder structure is open." "Yes," Reese pumped a fist. "Open financials." Ken clicked. "There is no financials folder." "What?" I leaned in, squinting at the screen. The folders were labeled Project, Ether, Manifesto, Draft V4 Soundscapes, Raw Vision, Board Assets. "Open Project Ether," Reese commanded, her voice tight. Ken clicked. A list of audio files appeared. Ether, groan, 1 wav screaming, metal, 3 wav. "Play one," I said, a sinking feeling settling in my stomach. Ken clicked Ether, groan, so 1. A sound filled the small shop. It sounded like a whale dying inside a washing machine full of silverware. "Woo!" Skrunk, ee! What is that? Ken asked, wincing. That, I said, putting my head in my hands, is my husband's genius. It's the art he spent my retirement fund on. Check the manifesto, Reese said, desperate. Maybe he hid account numbers in the text. Ken opened the Word document. It was 400 pages. The sonic liberation of the proletariat requires a frequency of 432 Hz. We spent 3 hours scanning it. Ken ran a search script for credit card sequences, bank routing numbers, anything numerical. Nothing, Ken said finally, leaning back in his chair. It's just gibberish, pseudo-philosophical ranting about sound waves. Reese slammed her hand on the counter. It was a false lead. He taped his art under the desk because he thinks it's his most valuable asset. The actual financial records are in that storage unit. We don't know where the unit is, I said, staring at the screen where Cameron's masterpiece was mocking us. And we don't have time to find it. The hearing is in 48 hours. Then we go with what we have, Reese said, standing up and straightening her blazer. We have the bank transfer history. We have the text messages. We have the timestamp. We ambush him in court. We don't need the storage unit to freeze him out. We just need it for jail time. I wanted jail time, I muttered. We'll get there, Reese said. First, we make him homeless. The courtroom smelled of floor wax and stale anxiety. Judge Thorne, Judge Angela Thorne, known in the circuit as the Thorny Rose, sat high up on the bench, looking over her reading glasses like she was examining a particularly disappointing insect. I sat next to Miles. I was wearing my Navy funeral suit. My cane was propped conspicuously against the table. I wasn't wearing makeup. I wanted to look exactly like what I was, a woman recovering from a brain injury. Cameron sat at the other table. He was wearing a suit I'd bought him for a gallery opening 3 years ago. It was tight in the shoulders now. Next to him was Dwight, his lawyer. Dwight looked like he bought his suit at a gas station. We are here for an emergency hearing regarding the freezing of assets, Judge Thorne said, her voice dry. Mr. Miller, you filed a motion claiming marital equity dissipation? Dwight stood up. He hitched up his pants. Yes, Your Honor, my client, Mr. Brennan, removed the funds to a secure holding entity to protect the marital estate. Mrs. Brennan has a history of manic spending, and given her recent medical event, he was concerned about her cognitive ability to manage their finances. Manic spending? Judge Thorne repeated. I have the financial disclosures here. Mrs. Brennan earns 90% of the household income. Her manic spending appears to be mortgage payments and grocery bills. She buys expensive shoes, Dwight said, and art supplies. I buy him art supplies, I whispered to Miles. Shh, Miles patted my arm. Let him dig. Furthermore, Dwight continued, gaining confidence, Mr. Brennan is the primary homemaker. He has sacrificed his own artistic career to support his wife's corporate ambitions. He is entitled to equitable access to the funds for his living expenses, while this divorce is pending. Judge Thorne looked at Cameron. Mr. Brennan, you are a soundscape artist, is that correct? Cameron stood up, looking tragic and misunderstood. Yes, Your Honor. I sculpt audio environments. And you claim you removed $78,000 to protect it? Yes. At what time did you remove these funds? Cameron hesitated. He looked at Dwight. Dwight nodded. On the afternoon of the 14th, Cameron said, when I realized Evelyn, my wife, was incapacitated. Miles stood up. He didn't hitch his pants. He didn't clear his throat. He just walked to the center of the room holding a single piece of paper. Your Honor, if I may, Miles said. This is the hospital log from Providence ICU. He handed a copy to the bailiff, who handed it to the judge. Please read the entry for 14 hours on the 14th, Miles said. Judge Thorne adjusted her glasses. Patient E. Brennan, inducted into pentobarbital coma to manage intracranial pressure, vitals unstable. Thank you, Miles said. And now please look at Exhibit B, the transaction log from First Republic Bank. He held up a blown-up screenshot. Transfer initiated 14:12 p.m. 12 minutes, Your Honor. Miles turned to look at Cameron. Cameron was staring at the table. 12 minutes after his wife was put into a coma, while doctors were fighting to keep her brain from swelling out of her skull, Mr. Brennan didn't call her parents. He didn't call a priest. He logged into her banking app and drained her life savings. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. You could hear the hum of the HVAC system. He wasn't protecting the estate, Miles said, his voice dropping to a deadly quiet. He was looting the body. Judge Thorne looked at Cameron. Her expression didn't change, but the air around her seemed to drop 10 degrees. Mr. Miller, the judge said to Dwight. Yes, Your Honor, Dwight's voice squeaked. Sit down. But sit down before I hold you in contempt for wasting my oxygen. She banged her gavel. Motion to freeze assets granted. All accounts associated with Caleb Brennan, Oral Visionaries LLC, and any other entities are frozen effective immediately. Mr. Brennan, you are ordered to return the full amount of $7,812 to the court registry within 24 hours. I can't, Cameron blurted out. I mean, it's invested. Invested in what? Judge Thorne snapped. Audio equipment and bonds. Then sell them, Judge Thorne said, and Mrs. Brennan is granted exclusive use of the marital residence. Mr. Brennan, you have 4 hours to vacate. You may take your clothes and your audio sculptures. Leave the furniture. She looked at me. For a second, her eyes softened. Get well, Mrs. Brennan. Bang. The victory felt like drinking champagne on the Titanic. We had the order, but we didn't have the money. Cameron had admitted it was invested, which Miles said was code for, I spent some and hid the rest. That night, back at Reese's apartment, because I wasn't ready to go back to the empty marital home yet, we were eating Thai food when my phone buzzed. It was from Jenna, a friend who lived in our old neighborhood. Jenna. Oh my God. Are you okay? I just saw Cameron at Whole Foods. Me. What happened? Jenna. It was brutal. He was in line with a basket full of stuff. Organic steaks, that expensive gin he likes, truffle oil. He tried to pay with his Amex. Declined. I sat up straighter. Reese, it's happening. Jenna. He tried another card. The Visa. Declined. He started yelling at the cashier, saying, Do you know who I am? My bank is flagging this for security because I made a large deposit. Me. Did he get the food? Jenna. No. The manager came over. Cameron had to put everything back except a bag of chips and a Red Bull, which he paid for with cash from his pocket. He looked like he was going to cry. Everyone was staring. I read the text out loud. Reese laughed, a sharp barking sound. The freeze worked, she said. The bank got the court order at 4 p.m. He's locked out. Every card, every account. He has no cash? I asked. He has whatever is in his pocket, Reese said, and whatever he gave Victoria. He's going to panic, I said. He can't pay for his storage unit. He can't pay for his Airbnb. Wait, where is he staying? Probably with Victoria, Reese said, which means the pressure is about to shift to her. A mistress is fun when you're a rich, misunderstood artist. A mistress is less fun when you're a broke, indicted fraudster sleeping on her couch and eating her yogurt. He'll ask her for money, I realized. And she'll give it to him, Reese said, until we make her realize that funding a fugitive is a bad career move. My phone buzzed again, not Jenna, an unknown number. Don't answer, Reese warned. It's a 503 number, I said. Local. I picked it up. Hello? Evelyn Brennan? A male voice, raspy, smoker's cough. Who is this? This is Julian. You know me. I bought the Static Voids piece from Cam last year. Julian. The patron. Cameron called him an art collector. I knew him as the guy who sold specialized hydroponic weed equipment and always paid in crumpled 20s. I know you, I said cautiously. Why are you calling me? Your husband owes me $5,000, Julian said. No pleasantries. I tried to call him, straight to voicemail. I went to the apartment. Doorman said he got kicked out. I tried his cards for the auto pay on the equipment he leased. Declined. He's not my husband anymore, Julian, I said, and I don't pay his debts. I don't expect you to, Julian wheezed, but I hear things. I hear you're looking for where the money went. I froze. Reese signaled me to put it on speaker. I'm listening, I said. Cam's an idiot, Julian said. He was bragging to me a month ago. Said he found a bank that doesn't ask questions. Said he was going to be a global citizen. Did he name the bank? Reese whispered furiously, mouthing, Ask him. What bank, Julian? I asked. He wanted me to move some of my liquidity through it. Showed me the brochure, shiny blue folder, Azure Holdings. Azure Holdings, I repeated. Reese was already typing it into her laptop. It's in the Caymans, Julian said, but they got a shell office in Delaware. That's where he wired his consulting fees. He thought he was slick. Why are you telling me this? Because if he's in jail, I don't get paid, Julian said. But if you get his money back, maybe you remember who helped you? If I get the money back, I said, I'll make sure your invoice is reviewed. Good enough. He also mentioned a flight. Saturday. Said he likes the window seat because the clouds inspire him. Prick. Julian hung up. Reese turned the laptop screen toward me. Azure Holdings Limited, specializing in offshore asset protection and privacy. Grand Cayman, Zurich, Delaware. Julian was right, Reese said. It's a laundry, a boutique money laundering firm for people who aren't rich enough for the big banks but are dumb enough to pay high fees. So the money is in the Caymans? I asked. Can we freeze a Cayman account? Not easily, Reese said. Not without a federal warrant. A local family court judge has no jurisdiction there. If the money is in Azure, it's safe from Judge Thorne. So we lost, I said, slumping back. No, Reese grinned. We just found the lever. He has money in the Caymans, but he can't access it easily here. He needs to get to the Caymans to use it, or he needs to wire it back to a U.S. account to buy his flight. But his U.S. accounts are frozen. Exactly, Reese said. He's trapped. He has a pot of gold on an island, but he's stuck in Portland with a declined debit card. He needs a bridge, and we're going to build him one, I realized. The next morning, the bridge started to crumble. We were drinking coffee when Reese's cell phone rang. She looked at the caller ID and raised an eyebrow. Well, well, speak of the devil. Who? Victoria Vance. Reese answered on speaker. Her voice shifted into shark mode. Cold, professional, terrifying. This is Reese. Hi, is this Reese, Evelyn's sister? The voice was young, shaky, and sounded congested, like she'd been crying. It is. To whom am I speaking? This is Victoria. I work with Cameron. You sleep with Cameron, Reese corrected. Let's not be vague, Victoria. We have the photos. A choked sob on the other end. I didn't know, okay? I swear to God. He told me they were separated. He told me she was abusive. He said she controlled all the money and wouldn't let him buy food. And you believe that? I spoke up. I couldn't help it. Evelyn, Victoria gasped. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. He's at my place. He's freaking out. He tried to book an Uber this morning and it wouldn't go through. He's asking me to put flights on my credit card. And did you? Reese asked. No, my limit is like $2,000. I can't afford tickets to Mexico. Mexico, Reese said. Thank you for confirming the destination. I'm scared, Victoria whispered. He's throwing things. He broke a vase. He keeps screaming about Azure and how he needs to get to a branch. Victoria, listen to me very carefully, Reese said. You are currently harboring a fugitive who is under investigation for federal wire fraud and grand larceny. If you buy him a sandwich, you are an accessory. If you let him use your Wi-Fi to move stolen funds, you are a co-conspirator. Do you look good in orange? No, Victoria whimpered. Then here is what you do. You tell him you're broke. You tell him your card is maxed out. You do not help him. And you tell us exactly when he plans to leave. He says he's waiting for a transfer, Victoria said. He's on the phone with his lawyer, Dwight. He says they're filing an emergency motion to release living expenses. Reese looked at me and smiled. The trap. Good, Reese said to Victoria. Let him do that. You just stay out of the way. And Victoria? Yeah? If he leaves the apartment, text me immediately. Reese hung up. He's taking the bait, Reese said. He's going to ask the court to release funds. He thinks if he gets the cash into his U.S. account, he can withdraw it and run. But if he withdraws it, he has cash, I said. He can buy the ticket. Not if we're watching, Reese said. The moment that money hits his account, he has to move it. If he pulls cash, it's suspicious. If he wires it to Azure, it's a felony. We need him to wire it, Miles said, walking into the room. He didn't knock. The concierge just let him up now. We need him to cross state lines electronically. That triggers the FBI. The emergency hearing was by Zoom this time. Judge Thorne looked even less amused on a webcam. Dwight was sweating visible pixels. Your Honor, Dwight said, my client is destitute. He has no food. He is relying on the charity of friends. We are requesting a one-time release of $12,000 from the frozen assets for legitimate living expenses and legal fees. Miles pretended to consider it. We were sitting in Reese's office, careful to keep the background neutral. Your Honor, Miles said, Mrs. Brennan does not wish to see her husband starve despite his actions. We will agree to a release of $12,000 to Mr. Brennan's primary checking account, provided it is subject to strict accounting. It must be used for rent, food, and legal counsel only. Agreed, Judge Thorne said. I am authorizing the release of $12,000. Mr. Brennan, if you spend a penny of this on anything other than survival, I will put you in a cell myself. Cameron, sitting in what was clearly Victoria's kitchen, I recognized the live, laugh, love sign in the background, tacky, nodded vigorously. Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to survive. The screen went black. He's lying, I said. Of course he is, Miles said, checking his watch. Reese, get the portal up. The bank will release the hold in about 10 minutes. We gathered around Reese's massive monitor. She had the mirror of Cameron's bank account running. It was a gray area legally, but Reese argued that since my name was still technically on the account as a beneficiary, we had access. The clock starts now, Reese said. 10:14 a.m. balance, 12:42, 10:15 a.m. Pending inbound transfers, $12,000. Court order 4492. Money is in, Reese said. Now we wait. He'll go to an ATM, I guessed. Pull out the Daily Max. He needs to buy a ticket for Saturday, Reese said. You can't buy an international ticket with cash at the counter any more easily. He needs to use a card, but his cards are negative. He has to pay off the card first. 10:18 a.m., nothing. 10:22 a.m., nothing. Maybe he's actually buying food? I asked. 10:25 a.m., transfer initiated to Azure Holdings Limited via intermediary. Amount, $11,500. Gotcha, Reese whispered. He didn't pay the card. He's wiring it back to the Cayman account. Why? I asked. That makes no sense. Because he has a debit card linked to the Cayman account, Miles realized. Julian said it. A global citizen. He's moving the U.S. cash to the offshore account so he can use his offshore debit card to book the flight, thinking we can't see the transaction. Is that a crime? I asked. He just wired court-restricted funds to an offshore tax haven, Miles said, pulling out his phone. That is money laundering. That is contempt of court. And that is wire fraud. He dialed a number. Agent Miller? Yes, it's Miles. He moved the money, yes, to the Caymans. We have the SWIFT code. Go get him. The transaction flashed on the screen, blinking like a neon guilty sign. Status, processed. He left himself $500, Reese noted, probably for the Uber to the airport. He thinks he's smart, I said, feeling a strange mix of anger and pity. He thinks he just hid the money from us. He just handed the FBI the jurisdiction they needed, Miles said. Before this, it was a domestic dispute, messy but civil. Now, he used the banking system to hide assets from a federal judge. Technically, Judge Thorne is state, but the wire crossed borders. The feds love this stuff. It's easy stats for them. My phone buzzed. Victoria. Victoria. He just booked it. He's smiling. He says, "We're going to paradise, babe." Saturday, Alaska Airlines Flight 442 to Los Angeles, then connecting to Cancun. Victoria. He bought 2 tickets. I stared at the text. 2 tickets. He's taking her, I said. He's dragging her down with him. Or, Reese said, she's the luggage. Tell her not to go, I said. Reese, tell her. Reese texted back, do not get on that plane. If you go to the airport, stay behind him. Let the agents take him. If you are holding his hand, you get cuffed too. Victoria. Okay, I'm scared. We have to watch, I said suddenly. What? Miles looked up. I want to see it, I said. I want to see the moment he realizes he's not a genius. I want to see the moment he realizes I won. It's risky, Miles said. If he sees you, he might cause a scene. It could get dangerous. I'll wear a disguise, I said. I have a cane. I'm invisible. Nobody looks at the crippled woman in the corner. Reese looked at me. She nodded slowly. We'll take the Volvo. We park in the short-term garage. We watch from the mezzanine level. You don't get closer than 50 feet. Saturday morning was gray and drizzly. Standard Portland pathetic fallacy. We arrived at PDX 3 hours early. I was wearing a shapeless beige coat, a hat pulled low, and big sunglasses. I looked like an aging celebrity trying to avoid paparazzi, or just a hungover rich woman. Reese and I set up camp in the food court on the mezzanine level overlooking the check-in counters, specifically the Alaska Airlines counter. Agent Miller said they're waiting. Miles texted us from his office. He refused to come. I hate airports, he said. They won't grab him at check-in. Too many civilians, they'll grab him at the TSA checkpoint or the gate. Less chaotic. TSA checkpoint is right there. Reese pointed to the glass barriers below us. We waited. I ate a stale bagel. My leg throbbed. 10:45 a.m. There, Reese whispered. I followed her gaze. Cameron walked through the automatic doors. He was wearing the fedora and sunglasses indoors. He looked like a caricature of a spy. He was pushing a cart with 3 massive vintage suitcases, my suitcases. Victoria trailed behind him. She looked terrified. She was pale, clutching a small backpack, looking around wildly. He's making her carry his carry-on, I noted. Typical. They went to the kiosk. Cameron tapped the screen furiously. He printed the bag tags. He looked happy. He looked arrogant. He was joking with the agent as he dropped the bags. He thinks he's free, I whispered. Look at him. He thinks he beat the system. He's about to learn about the no-fly list, Reese said. They moved toward the security checkpoint. The line was short. Cameron put his bins on the belt, shoes off, fedora off. He walked through the body scanner. Beep. He stepped out. A TSA agent motioned him to the side. Random check? I asked. No, Reese said. Look at the guy standing by the podium. Suit, earpiece. The suit moved in. Then another suit appeared from behind the X-ray machine. Cameron looked confused. He gestured to his belt. He pointed to Victoria, who had already passed through and was standing 10 feet away, frozen. The first suit pulled out a badge. Even from 50 feet away and through glass, I saw Cameron's shoulders slump. The arrogance evaporated. He didn't run. He didn't fight. He just deflated. He looked back at Victoria. She took a step backward, then another. They turned him around. Hands behind his back, the glint of steel. I thought I would feel triumph. I thought I would feel like pumping my fist. Instead, I just felt tired and sad. He was my husband. We had made pancakes on Sundays. We had a cat once. And now he was getting handcuffed next to a bin of plastic shoes in front of 100 strangers. It's over, I said. Then he looked up. He scanned the mezzanine. He couldn't possibly know I was there, but his eyes swept right over the food court. "Let's go," I said, turning away. "I've seen enough." We walked back to the car in silence. The adrenaline crash was hitting me hard. My hands were shaking. As we reached the Volvo, my phone buzzed. "Victoria. They took him. Oh my God, they took him." "Me? Where are you?" "Victoria. I'm in the Uber. Going home." The agent asked me a few questions but let me go. He said I was cooperative. Me. "Go home, Victoria. Change your locks." Victoria. "He blamed me. When they cuffed him, he screamed, 'She made me do it. She wanted the vacation.'" I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Of course he did." We got in the car. Reese didn't start the engine immediately. She turned to me. "You okay?" "No," I said, "but I will be." "He's gone, Evelyn. Federal custody. No bail for flight risks. He's not coming back to the apartment." "I know." "We can get the divorce finalized now. Default judgment. He can't fight it from a cell." "What about the money?" "The feds will seize the Azure account," Reese said. "It'll take time. Forensic accounting, asset forfeiture. But since you're the victim, you'll get restitution eventually. It might take a year." "I don't care about the time," I said. "I just care that he doesn't have it." We drove out of the parking garage. The rain had stopped. The sun was trying to break through the clouds, weak and watery, but there. "You know what?" I said, watching the city pass by. "I'm hungry. Like really hungry." "Steak?" Reese asked. "No, pancakes. I want the biggest, greasiest stack of pancakes in Portland." Reese smiled. "I know a place." 6 months later. The federal courthouse was cleaner than the county one, more wood paneling, better lighting. I sat in the gallery. No cane this time. I was walking with a slight limp, but I was walking on my own. I wore a red dress, not for him, for me. Cameron was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit. He had shaved his head, probably for lice or maybe to look tough. It didn't work. He looked small. Miles whispered to me, "The plea deal is signed. Wire fraud, identity theft. 2 counts. He took the deal to avoid the 10-year max." "What's he getting?" 30 months, plus restitution, plus 5 years probation. Judge Thorne wasn't presiding. It was a federal judge, a man named Henderson. "Mr. Brennan," Judge Henderson said, "you have admitted to systematically defrauding your wife while she was in a medical coma. You stole her identity. You moved funds across international borders to evade court orders. Do you have anything to say before sentencing?" Cameron stood up. He looked at the microphone. Then he looked at the gallery. He saw me. For a second, I thought he would apologize. I thought he would show a shred of the man I married. "I just wanted to be heard," Cameron said into the mic. "My art. It required resources. I thought she would understand. It was an investment in our future legacy." The judge stared at him. "You stole her retirement to record whale noises, Mr. Brennan. That is not a legacy. That is narcissism." Bang. 30 months. Federal Correctional Institution, Sheridan. Remanded immediately. The marshals took his arms. He didn't look back this time. I walked out of the courthouse. The air was crisp. It was autumn now. The leaves were turning. Reese was waiting on the steps. "Done?" she asked. "Done," I said. "How does it feel?" I thought about the thumbs up emoji. I thought about the text. "I deserve this." "It feels," I said, taking a deep breath, "like silence. Beautiful, quiet silence." 3 months later. It's been 3 months since Cameron went to prison. I wanted to give you guys a final update because the messages have been overwhelming. First, the money. The FBI recovered about $65,000 from the Cayman account. The rest, $13,000. He blew on consulting fees and the failed trip. I have a restitution order for the balance, which means 15% of his wages from the prison laundry, about $0.12 an hour, get sent to me. I got a check for 1.45 last week. I framed it. Second, the apartment. I sold it. I couldn't live there. Too many ghosts. I bought a smaller place, a fixer-upper industrial loft that actually needs work, not just cosmetic fluff. I'm renovating it myself, mostly. My right arm is at about 90% strength now. Turns out swinging a sledgehammer is great physical therapy. Third, Victoria. She testified. She didn't get charged. She actually sent me a letter last month apologizing. She broke up with the artist lifestyle and is going to nursing school. I didn't reply, but I didn't burn it. Fourth, me. I'm not the same person I was before the stroke. I don't work 80 hours a week anymore. I fired 3 clients last week because they were rude to waitstaff. It felt amazing. I started a small nonprofit called The Second Signal. We help women who suffer medical crises protect their finances from predatory partners. We provide legal templates, emergency POAs, and forensic accounting support. If there is one thing I learned, it's this. Betrayal relies on your silence. It relies on you being too embarrassed, too tired, or too nice to fight back. When Cameron sent me that text, I deserve this. He thought he was writing the ending to my story. He thought I was a tragedy. He forgot that I was the one who paid the phone bill. So, to anyone reading this who feels stuck or scared or like the math doesn't add up, check the accounts, trust your gut, and if someone kicks you when you're down, stand up and ruin them. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.